Hello, I'm Matthew from Ludovox, and we are the Essen Spiel Messe 2017 with Juma Al-Juju. Hi, Juma.
Hi.
So, there is your game. It's actually a game that you put out on Kickstarter and that had a lot of success. It's called Clans of Caledonia, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, it's a game for how many players, what audience, and for what span of time?
So it's for 1 to 4 players. It's 30 minutes per players approximately, so about 30 to 120 minutes depending on the player count. And it's like a mid-level to heavy strategy economic game. But I designed it in a way that it's kind of deep but not really complex, so it's quite accessible to like people who are not that heavy gamers.
So, who are we as players and what are we trying to achieve?
So, and the game is set in the 19th century in Scotland, when Scotland was transforming from an agricultural country to an industrialized one, heavily relying on trade and export. The players represent one of 9 different clans, historic clans with historic abilities, and they are very different and asymmetric. And basically, the game lasts 5 rounds, and players try to produce different goods, trade goods on the market, and export goods abroad to make most wealth and victory points.
So it is a victory point game. Okay. So how do we gain victory points? And well, you said a few things about them, but what do we do in a player turn?
So basically, there are like different sources for victory points. For instance, different resources, money is worth victory points, but the main driver for victory points are export contracts that give certain import goods that are worth a lot of victory points in the end of the game. And then there are also like 2 scoring things like the export scoring, whoever scored most on the export scores most, and also like a settlement scoring which rewards like having spread efficiently around the map. These are the main drivers for the victories. And what was the other question?
What do we do in a player turn?
Well, in your player turn, basically you have 8 different actions that you can choose from. There is a player aid that shows all the 8 different actions, and it's an action selection game kind of. So you have your money, and most of the actions cost money, and you can choose whatever you want. And at some point you will run out of money, and then you pass and you exit the current round and wait for other players to pass. And when everyone has passed, the action phase is over, and you go over to the production phase, where everything that you have built on the map will produce goods or money, and you can process basic goods into processed goods that are worth more.
Okay. So how do we occupy the board?
And basically, one of the actions is called expand. So what you can do is basically place a unit from your player board on the map. In the beginning of the game, we basically start with 2 workers already, and in the following we will basically spread around, and water limits our reach, and you can increase your shipping reach to be able to cross water more efficiently. And then what you do is you pay for, I don't know, your cow or your sheep, for instance, and also for the land you place it on, and that way you spread around. There are different terrains. Woodcutters go into wood, then the miners go into mountains, everything else goes into grasslands.
So, for example, if I wanted to place this sheep here, I had to pay 4 and 8 for the sheep, right? And I would gain this?
Exactly. In the production phase, you gain certain income, and it is clearly shown on your player mat. Basically, all icons that are revealed is your income. So 1 sheep produces 1 wool, 1 cow produces 1 milk, and if you have a cheese factory, it will process 1 milk into 1 cheese. So you have a production chain. You really need the basic good to produce the respective processed good.
Okay, and how are we going to interact with the other persons? Is it like we want to block the others from getting there, from expanding?
Yeah, that's one way. There is no terraforming or anything, so what is cheap for me is cheap for you, so there is some area control. Everyone tries to grab the cheap spots first, because eventually the cheap spots will be gone and you will have to pay more for expanding. So that's one way of interaction. then there is a market where you can both sell and buy goods, and when you buy something the price goes up, if you sell something the price goes down, and that way there's a lot of interaction because you can spoil the price for another player by selling in time, for instance. Other than that, the export contracts are also very important for the game, and you can grab an attractive export contract before another player can do so, and the scoring, the end scorings in the export and also the settlement scoring are also really important, so there you try to outcompete your opponents.
Okay, and when does the game end? Is it after a certain number of rounds or after some player... okay, 5 rounds.
Yeah, exactly. There are basically 5 rounds, and each round has 4 phases. So after 5 rounds, the game ends, and then you basically have a score sheet where you enter your values and can calculate the total victory points.
So why did you have the idea of designing this game? Does it come from one of your great loves of board gaming, or did you want to make a game about Scotland?
Well, in the very beginning, I was mostly inspired by the market from Navigator, I have to admit. And so I wanted to make a game like this, but even more thematic maybe, and like in a farming setting, because I like economic principles or mechanics, but for people who didn't study business or economics like me, like economic mechanics are sometimes a little abstract, but the farming theme makes economic principles and mechanics kind of less abstract because people can relate to it a bit more easily. So this was the very beginning, but then the market changed quite a lot from Navigator, and then the inspiration from Terra Mystica kicked in, so the area control has certain similarities with Terra Mystica, although it is quite different as well. And these were two inspirations, and also I really like games where you have contracts like, I don't know, Stone Age or Marco Polo, which give you like a round-to-round goal that you try to achieve. And so this was an inspiration to add the contracts to the game, which also makes perfect sense.
So how long did this game take to develop? Was it over the course of 1-2 years?
In total, I think it was over a span of 3 years. In the beginning, the game was very different from what it's now, and it was quite decent. People actually liked it quite a bit, but I felt it is good, but not very, very good. And then I didn't have an idea how I can significantly improve it, so I didn't touch it for 9 months, which is really long for me usually. I mean, usually I don't do this. Usually I work on it continuously. But after 9 months, I just had I woke up and had the idea how to significantly improve the game, and that made also change the game almost completely. But for the better, in my opinion. And so this was kind of the breakthrough. And after that, this was shortly after the birth of my daughter, and then I worked non-stop on it full time for I don't know, maybe around 1 year, and then I launched the Kickstarter.
What was your biggest design challenge on this game?
Well, it's the first game with variable player powers. So this was a kind of a big challenge, and I was really ambitious to make the clans as balanced as possible. And that's really tough when you have very asymmetric powers. And so what I did is the first 100 playtests, more 100 playtests were with 100 diverse playtesters, and this was mostly to get as much diverse feedback as possible to basically find out which mechanics are most fun. And only when I had found out which mechanics are most fun, and this was kind of set in stone and defined, I started to work on the balance of the clans. And how did I do so? I realized that when I have new playtesters, that their skill varies a lot, and the data I get from playtests with newbies is worth nothing, because I don't know if they played badly or if the clan is underpowered. So that's why I spent about 9 months just balancing the clans, and I did so by only playing with the best playtesters who continuously had high scores, so I really know their core strengths, so to speak, and I could compare basically their scores across different clans, and I got more valid data. And I playtested a lot with them, also myself, and this way I got a really good feeling for the clans, and I ran some statistical analysis in Excel that indicated the clans are very well balanced.
So this game is slowly getting out of the factories, etc., because we have like metal coins and all the meeples that are there. So what are you working on now?
Right now, I'm just like working on the operations. I mean, the big success came as a big surprise for me. I mean, I couldn't have expected that. I'm doing this all as a solopreneur, so I have just a huge workload at the moment. I can't really like work on new designs at the moment, so I'm just trying to satisfy all customers, make sure all Kisabergers get their copy and things like this. And yeah, I'm actually looking forward to grow the team so I can actually delegate more tasks, so I can find more time to start designing new games, for instance, like an expansion.
So are there some particular themes that you want to work on later in the future?
Well, I have an idea for like a purely whiskey theme, like a, let's say viticulture as a whiskey theme. Like, yeah, this would be something I'm interested in, because when I designed Clans of Caledonia, I did a lot of research about how whiskey is produced, and yeah, this knowledge made me curious about the theme and really interested in digging more into the whiskey theme.
Okay, thank you, Juma, for that overview of Clans of Caledonia, and see you on the box. Bye bye.